This week on Talking Pictures with Neil Rosen, we'll look at the new action thriller Cleaner, starring Daisy Ridley and Clive Owen, the acclaimed Brazilian film I'm Still Here, Nicole Kidman's erotic thriller Babygirl, a very different love story with a high-tech twist called Companion, plus the darkly comedic sci-fi adventure Mickey 17, starring Robert Pattison. We've got all that, and many more movie picks coming up. I'm Neil Rosen, and welcome to Talking Pictures. This is our monthly Critic Roundtable show, where we debate what's worth watching and what's not when it comes to new releases, hidden gems, and Hollywood classics. Joining me are Bill McCuddy from the podcast Sitting Around Talking Movies, Mike Sargent from WBAI and the Brown and Black podcast, and we want to welcome a new member to our panel, Kristy Puchko from Mashable. Let's start out with a look at several new films or series in theaters and or streaming, beginning with a new movie from writer, director, and star Ed Burns. It's called Millers in Marriage. Let's take a look at a clip.
I invite you up to my house to stay with me for the weekend. I want to introduce you to some of my friends. And you take a call from your ex-wife, even though I asked you not to. And to make it worse, you took the call outside like you've got something to hide. Do you have something to hide?
Okay, first of all, she's not my ex-wife yet, right? I mean, we're only separated.
Are you wanting to get back together with her?
No, not at all. I am just simply stating the facts.
Oh, the facts. You're stating the facts. Okay, here's a fact. Tina is not a nice person. You just said back there you don't know what your sister saw in her husband. Well, what did you ever see in Tina?
Look, if you must know, there were times when she could be very nice and very sweet, all right?
There were? Oh, I never saw that.
Bill, let's talk about Millers in Marriage.
Well, Ed Burns is getting really good at making Ed Burns movies. This is no exception. This time, instead of being the brothers McMullen or younger, everybody's middle-aged. It's 6 people. Actually 7 or 8 if you count out the affairs they're having. Think of this as kind of a lower-rent Hannah and her sisters. The cast includes Juliana Margulies, married to Campbell Scott. Gretchen Mol, great to see her back. She hasn't been around in a while. Married to Patrick Wilson. And Burns dating Minnie Driver while divorcing Marina Baccarin. She was Brody's wife in Homeland. Anyway, the good thing about this film, which deals with infidelity and ego and upstate New York but shot in New Jersey, is that it really moves along. It's cliched in a lot of ways, but it's elegantly filmed. I liked spending time with most of these people, so I'm going to give it a moderate pass.
Kristy.
I agree that it's like a hangout movie, but I didn't want to hang out with any of these people.
Well, you'll feel like that on this show very shortly.
No, I like Ed Burns' early stuff, but this felt to me like he had like scrap notes of like maybe I'll make this movie, maybe I'll make this movie, and then just piled them all together. Because like the only harmony is that everyone has a bad marriage, and I'm like I get it, but it's like it felt really disjointed. I had to keep kind of reminding myself who was related to who, and that's in part because of the way it's structured, where it's like you're all together, but then they do a flashback, but then they do a flash forward. But then on top of that, it's just that the people playing brothers and sisters like don't have a connection that made me feel at all like they're a family. So it all just felt really disjointed to me. And while I might have liked certain scenes or certain actors or certain performances, like as a whole, I found it kind of frustrating.
Mike?
I'm kind of in between the both of them. I like the actors. I like Ed Burns. I think he's an acquired taste. The melodramatic flashbacks, after a while, they got a little bit like, this is like a 35-minute movie with a bunch of flashbacks. And if he had just let the actors, through their performance, get a sense of, wow, there's a lot behind that line, maybe it would have been better. I agree with you. I didn't really want to hang out with these people, and you hang out with them for like over an hour and a half. So I like the performers more than the characters, and I think Ed Burns should write plays.
Ed Burns hasn't made a feature in a while, and to me it's a welcome return. I mean, he has a certain style, like Woody Allen has a certain style, and
yes,
this
and
style
he's ripping this off.
his style is very prevalent in this movie, and if you look at his body of work, as he matures, as he gets older, if you look at the brothers McMullen, I mean, I believe I saw it so long ago, he's a single guy and there's those problems. Now it's married couples that are having problems. And I think it's a very relatable situation. I found this kind of interesting. Is it his best work? No, but it's a grown-up movie. And I thought the dialogue was, these are realistic characters. I did not mind spending time with these people. Was I in love with the characters? No, but I found them to be realistic. All these stories ring true, and I would recommend the film. Mike, tell us about the Brazilian movie, I'm Still Here.
I'm Still Here is a new film from Walter Salles, who is probably Brazil's most well-known filmmaker, and it stars Fernando Torres and Fernando Montenegro, who was in his first most acclaimed film. And they both play at different ages a character named Eunice Pava. It's based on a true story, and it's based on the autobiographical novel written by the son of the Pavas. Ruben Pava was let's just say he was a figure at a time when Brazil in 1970 was under a military dictatorship. And in the film, we meet the family, they're a loving family, and then all of a sudden, the dad is taken. We don't know why. I don't want to give away too much of the film, but I have to say what happens, and the film takes place over 3 time periods, what happens to Eunice during that time and how her transformation from being the loving wife to being an activist to being the matriarch of the family is very powerful. And I think she's gotten a lot of acclaim for this, and deservedly so.
Bill?
Well, this is one of the best films of the year. Obviously, it landed on lots of lists. And I just think one of the things I enjoyed the most about it is that Fernanda is in the movie in the first 15 minutes, part of the family. She's not in the foreground, she's not in the background. But boy, when she has to step up and become the advocate and it's an amazing performance. I can't recommend this movie more.
Kristy?
I was really taken by this. We were talking about Helen Miller's In Marriage. It was a hangout movie I didn't want to be a part of. This movie, it felt like everybody felt like an actual family, like so intensely. But what I was so struck by is that considering the context, considering you know what it's about, that it's about how a family deals with a political kidnapping, it's not a dark movie. Like, so much of it is about rebellion and resistance and resilience. And I found it really beautiful, and I was like, it hit really hard, but I just thought it was such a lovely movie, which caught me off guard, considering the content.
It's not only a good film, it's also an important film from a historical perspective. It's a history lesson. I didn't know much about the Brazilian dictatorship that took place for so many of these years, but putting it through the lens of a family where you see the first 20 minutes, they're like idyllic family. And then to see this transformation that goes on when, you know, the husband's taken away, she's taken away, the daughter's taken away, but yet Fernanda Torres, I mean, what a performance. I mean,
largely silent.
Yeah, but she doesn't cry. I mean, she's there with this strength to be strong for the family. Great performances, really great film. Babygirl is the name of Nicole Kidman's erotically charged thriller. Let's take a look at a clip.
Sorry, why didn't you respond?
I'm sorry, I have to go.
If you don't want to be my mentor, I understand, but that I do want one because it makes a big difference. So there's lots of other people I can ask, you know what I mean? So it just...
Are you done?
With...
Do you understand your behavior is totally out of line?
Is it?
Kristy, I don't want to sound like Jerry Seinfeld, but what's the deal with Babygirl?
Babygirl is an erotic thriller from Helena Rain, writer-director, and it is a kind of wonderful, exciting flip on 90s erotic thrillers. Because in the 90s erotic thrillers, it was typically like, I'm a powerful man of power. And then there was like a woman who would come along and be very sexually like aware of herself and seductive, and he would throw away everything to be with her. And it was like, this man risking whether it's his life, his job, his family, for a woman. And this, Nicole Kidman, is a CEO, and she has like a perfect husband in Antonio Banderas. She has 2 lovely daughters. She has a beautiful apartment, and she's all this, like all the things. She's got it all. But then she meets this intern played by Harris Dickinson, who is just inappropriate with her. And
by the way, for an intern, the guy looks like he's like in his late 30s. I just want to tell you that.
We know different 30-year-olds, but
he doesn't know any 30-year-old.
Yeah, exactly. He's remembering.
But he is a younger man. I had a friend of mine say that they did not like this movie because they felt like he's too sexually aware of himself for a man that young. And I think it's a play with the Lolita trope, where he's not underage, to be clear, but I think it's the idea of this fantasy of meeting someone who is younger than you and who makes you feel young, but who is also more aware of themselves, because it makes you feel seen in a way you are not in your life. And I think that's why this film is so effective, because it's very dirty, but it's not tawdry. It's very much about self-discovery through sexual exploration. And what I really like about it best, I think, is not just that it's a sexy movie, but that the exploration of sex in it is playful. There's like giggling, there's awkward moments, and it's not this like sanitized version of sex that's all glamorous and, you know, glossy lips.
Mike.
Well, you know, I liked the movie more than I thought I would, but as I was watching it, I was like, this is written by a woman. It felt in many ways like a man's version of what he thought a woman would want. I also wondered by the end what some of the point was, because there were some images there that I'm like, okay. I liked the movie. I thought Nicole Kidman definitely gave a quote-unquote brave performance, and not because she's the age she is, just that she did some things that were pretty powerful. I agree with you about him. I think that he's a predator and he knows his prey.
Whether you agree or not that it's a powerful performance by Nicole Kidman, there's still the acid test of what some of the things she does. And if you laugh like some of the audiences I'm seeing are in the theater, and it's that uncomfortable, I don't like what I'm seeing laugh, you're not going to enjoy this film. If you take it as an unbelievable performance by Nicole Kidman, maybe better than the movie itself, I think you'll have a good time.
Okay, I hated this film. And by the way, for the record, so did my wife. So it's not just a man's
That's because you're
opinion.
not 30 anymore.
Well, no, here's the thing. Look, I was
And she won't drink the milk, your wife, out of the little
I was
bowl?
no fan of 50 Shades of Grey, okay? But I have to tell you, at least that had a little, it was a little bolder. This is so lame and so tame and unerotic, and it comes off, like you said, laughing. I thought some of the scenes were absolutely ridiculous. You just reference point, there is a scene, and this is no spoiler, where the guy who's the dominant thing makes her get down on her hands and knees and like a cat, lick milk out of a bowl. I mean,
That's not big enough for you? That's not over the top enough for you?
That's not erotic? Neil?
It's absurd. What?
That's not erotic for you?
No, it wasn't erotic. You know, I think that the whole thing was very vanilla, you know, in terms of if you want to explore the BDSM world.
Neil has quite a sex life, obviously.
No, I'm just saying it's not erotic. It's not
What
interesting.
flavor is your
It's
sex life,
boring.
Neil Rosen?
I was eye rolling through this entire thing. It comes off goofy and unrealistic. And by the way, no spoiler either. I think the ending and Antonio Banderas, who's her husband's reaction to this and then counter reaction to this, is also extremely unrealistic. I do not recommend this movie on any level whatsoever.
Wow.
Bill, tell us about a new movie called I Love You Forever.
Well, I Love You Forever, but not exactly. This is the rom-com from hell. It stars a very good Sophia Black-Delia, Ray Nicholson, and Cassie David. By the way, that's Larry David's daughter, and she co-directed the film. Delia's a law student who meets a ridiculous TV reporter who tells women he loves them on the air. That would never happen. He's also very narcissistic, which who on TV is like that? Anyway, Diablo Cody co-produced this thing. It's basically a bad Cosmopolitan article. The guy starts out nice, but then everything he can do that's wrong, and then she keeps coming back to him. It's just frustrating after a while. So I don't love this forever, and I don't think you will either.
Kristy?
I hated it.
How do you really feel about this film?
But will you hate it forever?
Yeah, I actually feel pretty certain on that. I saw it last year at Sundance and went, oh, no, thank you. And then I rewatched it because we were going to be talking about it. And I remembered not liking it, but I was like, why? And I'm like, right, all this. And I agree.
She's good.
I think the performances in it are good. I think the writing is subpar. There's nothing in it that felt particularly like biting or insightful. It just kind of like, it felt like someone who had grown up on 90s PSA, like very special episodes where it's like, Zach, we need to talk about love bombing or something. Like, it was just like, he does all this thing where he's like, he just covers her in presents and then he's emotionally abusive. And I think that there are interesting stories told about that often. I don't think this is one of them. I feel like part of the problem is I never felt invested in her character or him. And so when he starts becoming abusive, while I understand that abusive relationships are a slippery slope and people feel trapped in them, so it's hard to get out, I didn't understand why she signed up for this to begin with.
Right.
Like, don't get me wrong, Ray Nicholson is a handsome man. He's got some of his dad's charisma. He's Jack's son. I get it. But like, it's just, the script is so thin that I never felt invested enough to understand, like, why are we doing this? So it just becomes a slog. And it feels like when you have that friend who's like dating someone terrible and you keep being like, girl, how many times are we gonna have this same conversation? Get out. And like, I don't want to spend my... No, I don't want to spend my time watching that.
I think you're right, Kristy, and I think the problem is that you watch this character and you go, why is she staying? And I think you should ask that, but then you never find out. You never find out, like, what's the psychology.
I'm going to tell you, go ahead.
I know there is a reason, but I don't think that it's really explored in this film. It reminded me of a film that Julia Roberts did, Sleeping with the Enemy. Do you remember that film?
Yes, I do.
Where it's really trying to get you to understand. It's not like, look at what that woman's doing. It's sort of like, this is what we do, this is why. And I think it should have had that tone. Because by the end, what did the character learn? The character learned nothing. She was the same. She would have gone right back in.
I love Sophia Black-Delia. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the TV series Single Drunk Female. I thought she was unbelievable in that. There's something about her personality that I gravitate to. I think she's great comedically, and I think she also shows emotion when need be. To answer your question about why she's staying in this relationship with this guy who's absolutely bipolar psychotic 1 minute, and then the next minute like the most charming boyfriend you could ever have, I think she suffers from extreme low self-esteem. And the fact that she, in the beginning of the movie, she's going on all these bad hookup one-nighter dates, and they're all just terrible. And you know, she's also with some guy that's the friends with benefits kind of guy, and treats her terribly. That since she's never been in a real relationship where somebody's paid this much attention to her, she feels that she's accepting all of this nuttiness, that she feels this is, I guess, the way the relationship, finally somebody loves me. And I think that's an important part of the movie.
But she should pretty quickly figure out that this is not for her either.
But it's
there
also
must
a
be
comedy.
something else.
It's also a
But
comedy.
we learned that in the first act.
Right, but I understand, like, I understand where the script has, like, this is why it's working that way, but I don't feel connected to it because the character felt more like a collection of quirks than it did a person. And so I just never felt like I was rooted into that story.
Well, it is a comedy, you know, primarily, and as you said, co-written and co-directed by Larry David's daughter. This is not.
Yeah, that gene pool didn't go very deep.
No, this is not Curb Your Enthusiasm. It's not the tone of that at all. But I think it's funny, and I think she's winning, Sophia Black-Delia, and I think that it makes some really interesting points. And I think Nicholson's son plays a good psychotic. You know, maybe he got a lesson from The Shining from his dad. I don't know, but
once again, Neil, you are wrong forever.
You are wrong. You are wrong. Mike, tell us about a new movie called Cleaner.
Okay. When the movie Die Hard came out, it created a whole series of action films. There's Die Hard on a plane, Die Hard on a boat, Die Hard wherever you could think of Die Hard. This is Die Hard in a building, okay? And some eco-terrorists decide that they are, or activists, you're not really sure, they're going to take hostages at this energy corporation in this big tower in London and hold hostage, and they're going to kill everybody if the police intervene. But what they didn't know is that the fly in the ointment is an ex-Marine or honorably discharged, you know, it's Daisy Ridley, who happens to be one of the window cleaners and happens to be working late. And so she happens to be the fly in the ointment. And now, it's fun for a little while, and it's directed by Martin Campbell, who directed Casino Royale, the first
two Bond movies.
And he directed GoldenEye. Yes, he did. So he knows action, but he's 81.
Does he?
He's 81, so he may not know what audiences really want. I think Daisy Ridley is an appealing lead. I think she needs better movies than this. I think this is not a complete waste of time. If you love Die Hard, then you'll just sit there and smile, like, oh, wow, that's just like Die Hard. If not, maybe you like the movie Inside Man, and you get to see Clive Owen sort of play a watered-down version.
That's a great movie.
It is a great movie.
Right.
And Clive Owen plays almost the same character in this. And I think that that's fun. So there are things about this that I enjoyed, but ultimately it's kind of what they would call today mid.
Bill, I don't want to steal your line, but...
well, it's not a great line, but the movie could be called Die Her, because it's basically Die Hard with a woman in the yippee-ki-yo. But what's most fascinating to me about this whole movie is Clive Owen is kind of wasted in this movie for a couple of reasons, but I will say that for Martin Campbell, the thing is badly edited and directed. I mean, there's some of the fight scenes have a guy with a bag over his head, and then a second later he doesn't have a bag over his head. Then somebody goes flying out of building out of nowhere because a little piece of steam hit her in the face. It's just, I was very disappointed in this.
Kristy?
I have seen much worse action movies this year. I like Cleaner. I agree with you. I think it's mid-tier. It's okay. But I was watching it and I was like, oh, it's Die Hard with a window cleaner. Sure. But like, I genuinely thought it was really fun. I thought that the kind of political stuff of it was kind of fun and exciting because it goes to a point where it's like, oh, like it reminded me a little bit of Killmonger, where you're like,
right.
I see your point. And you're like, I don't know if I'm like still with you. But so I thought that was really interesting and fun. I thought the performances were, I like Daisy Ridley in this, and it's like interesting to see her play something that's a little gruffer. She, you know, she's not just doing action stuff, but she's cursing, which is like a recurring theme because her brother is in it and he doesn't like cursing. Not her real life brother, her fictional in the movie brother. But I totally agree. This is not like a you have to go see it in theaters thing, but like if you're a diehard fan, if you like an action movie, like this one I thought was, it hits the diehard beats well enough while doing its own thing that I enjoyed it. It's not unforgettable, but I thought it was really fun.
Okay, so initially, despite the fact that they go into this building, it's this eco-terrorist organization with Clive Owen is sort of well-intentioned until this maniac takes over, whose performance is like way over the top.
Who Daisy Ridley knows but doesn't know. It's very confusing.
Yes, that is confusing. And I will also say, okay, she's an highly skilled ex-military person, and she can't find another job. She's a window cleaner. I mean,
she likes to climb. Don't you remember you saw her as a kid?
She
likes to climb.
Yes.
We've also established she's not good at like maintaining routines or keeping up with people.
It takes her 11 and a half minutes to break a window.
It's hard to feel anything for these people that are being held hostages, since you know, you're supposed to be rooting for these people. They've dumped chemicals and killed innocent people.
But you're not supposed to be rooting for them.
Right.
That's why
the
they
only
have the
person
brother.
you're rooting for is the brother.
Yeah.
But you know, because it's Martin Campbell who's done all these 007 films, I think that the action scenes are well done. So if you're there strictly for the action and you don't mind the Die Hard ripoff, I mean, they are 50 stories up, and a lot of people are falling off those scaffolds, you know, and on that level, you know, I'm mixed on this, but I think the plot is kind of like kind of
Die
messed
Hard.
up, you know. Yeah, she's on the outside of the building. Bruce Willis was on the inside of the building, you know, but it's the same thing.
She's still the fly in the ointment.
There you go.
I know it's gonna sound cheesy, but the moment we locked eyes, there was just a spark.
That was a clip from the new high-tech romance film called Companion. It happens to be Mike Sargent's personal choice as we go around the panel, as we always do every month, with our critics' picks of the month. Mike.
Well, I loved Companion. This is my kind of movie. I loved it for a number of reasons. And I go into movies, just if you don't know, I don't watch trailers. I try never, because I hate waiting for
spoilers.
I hate waiting for what I don't know is going to happen to start happening. Okay, so I had no idea what the genre was. I just know Sophie Thatcher was in it. I didn't even know Jack Quaid was in it. And it opens up, we meet this couple. They're a young couple. They're going upstate to stay at this remote cabin with some friends. The friends don't like her. We don't know why. Some things are going on. She's not being treated well. And then by the end of the first act, something happens. And everything changes. And I'm like, oh. What I love about it is that it's about what I think good science fiction should be, which is the human condition. It's about love. It's about what it is to be human, about connection with inanimate objects. It's about where does humanity end. It's about AI. It's about robotics. It's about so many things that I think make this a must-watch.
What's your pick, Kristy?
My pick is Bong Joon-ho's Mickey 17. He is the acclaimed Oscar-winning director of Parasite, and he's back with another movie that is blending genres in a very exciting way and also has a lot to say politically, so let's go. But Robert Pattison plays, in like the sci-fi kind of terminology, he's a clone, but it's not literally cloning. It's a concept of human printing where he signs up to be an expendable, which means that he has basically signed up to be a human guinea pig, and they go to this space colony where they're trying to set up new human residents on another planet, and they have to like test to make sure things are safe. So they test with him, and if he dies, they just reprint him and go again. So Mickey 17 refers to the character who is the 17th printing of Mickey, and the things he encounters in this kind of complicated political diaspora where if someone is designated someone so expendable you can just keep killing them and there's no recourse, what does that mean? And I think it's actually a very funny movie. I think Robert Pattinson is very hilarious in it. He has he said this was originally a reference point and then he moved away from it, but it's still very Steve-O from Jackass vibes. Like the voice and the kind of we were like, why would someone do this? And you're like, oh, I get it. You know, you can hear the themes like, da da da.
You're a jackass.
Yeah. And now the
But
themes
also
like
Edge of Tomorrow, or it's crazier than that?
I think it's way crazier than that. In part because, like, in that, like, the aliens, there's a clear, the villain is very clear in Edge of Tomorrow, and in Mickey 17, it kind of takes time for the villain to kind of make known who the villain is. Though there are aliens, they're adorable, I'm obsessed with them. But yeah, it's a really funny movie. It's a very twisted movie, and if you know Bong, it's like, there's a lot to unpack.
Bill, what you pick?
It's called American Primeval, and it takes us to the Old West where a mother and her son are trying to get to California. There are a few Indians in the way, but there are a lot more mean Mormons in the way, and this storyline is cropping up in a lot of stuff. Godless, that Soderbergh did a couple years ago, just as good actually. And so this is an interesting kind of inroad. It's very brutal, but it's only about 5 or 6 episodes. It stars Betty Gilpin, also Taylor Kitsch, and Alex Fine. It ain't Yellowstone is all I say, but I think you'll enjoy the ride.
My pick is the Netflix rom-com series Nobody Wants This. Now, this show debuted late last year, but with so much content out there, I thought I'd bring this to your attention in case you missed it. Kristen Bell plays Joanne, who hosts a popular podcast that revolves around her sex life and her bad dates. At a party, she meets Noah, the guy of her dreams, played by Adam Brody, but here's the twist. He's a rabbi, and she's not Jewish, which leads to a lot of complications with both of their respective families. Now, this particular interfaith pairing has been done many times before on stage, film, and TV, but what makes this fresh and work very well is the great chemistry between Bell and Brody, the sharp supporting cast, and the crisp, witty writing. Show is romantic, fun, and funny, and even though it's called Nobody Wants This, apparently lots of people want this because Netflix has renewed it for a second season, which is coming later this year.
I can't believe I agree with Neil Rosen. I need an intervention. It's great. I love it.
Yeah, well, that's about all the time we have. I want to thank Bill McCuddy, Mike Sargent, and Kristy Puchko. I'm Neil Rosen. Join us next time on Talking Pictures.